Good afternoon and welcome to the Mesa City Council meeting for March the 16th. All of our council is present either physically or on the telephone. We have Mr. Luna and Mr. Thompson, I believe, on the telephone. Are you there, gentlemen?
That's correct, Mayor.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. The first item on our agenda is an invocation. And I apologize, this meeting might be somewhat disjointed because some of the public speakers are located in the basement of this building. I don't believe that the Reverend Dana Reardon from First Evangelical Church is here. My apologies if he's downstairs and I am not giving him the opportunity to offer the invocation. So in lieu of an invocation, we'll begin with a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in a moment of silence. I think this is a particularly poignant time for us as a community to bow our heads in whatever way is appropriate for you to offer a prayer seeking the blessings on our community and on our nation and on our world, frankly. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The first item on our agenda is awards, recognitions, and announcements, and I would like to begin with some announcements, kind of rehearsing where we are as a city as of today. I think I was having a conversation earlier today with a gentleman who said he doesn't recall experiencing a time like this during his lifetime. And my comment was, it seems like maybe 9/11 of the year 2001 is somewhat applicable. I think the level of anxiety that we're experiencing as a community and as a nation and as a world is really unprecedented for most people. As we convene here today, a state of emergency exists in the state of Arizona and in our city. And measures are being ramped up and stepped up each day, it seems. I would like to share some of the highlights of a press release that the city of Mesa issued today with regard to how the city is functioning and what services are being made available as of today. And this is everything that I'm about to rehearse for you will be available on the City of Mesa website, mesaaz.gov/coronavirus, and then also certainly on the city's social media pages as well. The press release that went out today makes note that as of today, all Mesa library facilities are closed. It's important to note that the online collections are available. So I know particularly with kids home from school, hopefully we can take advantage of some of the online resources that the city libraries have. Similarly, all of our parks and recreation programs are suspended. That includes activities at our facilities at Red Mountain Center, Eagles Community Center, Jefferson Recreation Center, the Webster Recreation Center, Mesa Tennis Center, Keno Aquatic Center, Skyline Aquatic Center. All are closed as of today. City parks, however, remain open. The Mesa Convention Center and Mesa Amphitheater, all events there have been postponed or canceled through the end of April. The Mesa Arts Center, regrettably, has closed all of their theaters through the end of April. If you're signed up for classes at the art studios, those have been suspended through April the 30th as well. The Mesa Contemporary Arts Museum also is closed. There have obviously several events that were scheduled to take place at the Mesa Art Center. They have, for the next 2 weeks, each of those performances has been canceled or postponed. We encourage, if you have a ticket to one of those performances, please contact the Mesa Art Center website for information about how to respond to that situation. Unfortunately, the Idea Museum and the Arizona Museum of Natural History, all of their programs and their hours have been suspended. With regard to the environmental management and sustainability programs of the city, our very popular household hazardous waste facility is closed until further notice. Similarly, the neighborhood cleanup program is suspended through the end of April. Other popular programs, including bulk trash and appliance pickup, are not being scheduled at this time. I would also point out that since this press release was written, there have been, continues to be evolving. Today, the President of the United States and our governor included in their recommendations that we follow the CDC recommendations that discourages groups of people in 10 and over as convening. Also, the recommendations discourage dining out in restaurants. I would note that I would still encourage people that this is going to have a significant impact on the livelihood of many people in our community. I had a great lunch today that I took takeout from one of our local restaurants. Would encourage you to find ways to support our local economy that way, if possible. I would note that this, again, is an evolving situation, and the City of Mesa will continue to consider additional measures over the next few days and weeks. Also today, I convened a telephone conference with many of our nonprofit and social service agencies that provide food in Mesa to check on their operations and needs during these unprecedented times. Many of these agencies are operating as usual with minor adjustments to procedures to ensure the safety of their employees, volunteers, and customers. I'm going to read some information with some websites. Again, don't panic if you hear something that you're interested in. All of these websites are listed on Facebook pages and the city's website as well. I'm particularly concerned, and I know we all are, about those people in our community that feel a sense of food insecurity. Over this weekend, I had conversations with a couple of families standing in line at grocery stores that were feeling a great amount of anxiety. And I want you to know that I don't think that's necessary. We do have sufficient food resources in our community for people who are in need. If you find your family in need, similar to what I just described, please go to azfoodbanks.org. It's a great website. Find a local food bank near you, or click the map that's on that page for locations in Mesa. Be sure to call ahead for times that they're open. Obviously, our schools, all of the public schools in Mesa, each of our 4 school districts have been suspended at this time. I know that creates some hardships on families, particularly families that rely on the school districts for nutrition for their families. If you have a child in the Mesa Public School System, the good news is that meals are available to all children in the city, regardless of where they go to school, or regardless of whether they're a Mesa Public School student or not. Meals are available to all children 18 years and younger at every elementary school in Mesa Public Schools from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., Monday through Friday. On Fridays, Arizona Brain Food will additionally supply bags with supplemental food for the weekend. There is a great website at mesapublicschools.org where you can locate the elementary school that's closest to your home. Mesa residents attending Gilbert Public Schools, similarly, there are food programs there as well, and a significant portion of Mesa is located in Gilbert Public Schools. So please go to gilbertschools.net to find the nearest location there and the parameters of their program. We're all very concerned about the seniors in our community in particular. Meals on Wheels is a great program, and Meals on Wheels indicates that they do have some capacity for new members. You can sign up for that program at www.asteraz.org. Again, these websites will be located on all of our electronic communications as well. Many of our organizations report a need for volunteers. If you are well and have additional time to help, please consider volunteering. A great way to do that is to go to www.justserve.org. If you feel the calling to contribute monetarily, we'd encourage you to do so. Mesa United Way has a fund set up, particularly to deal with the coronavirus situation. So please go to the mesaunitedway.org to make that contribution. Also, the United Food Bank has successfully restructured their Help Yourself program to streamline the process and to maintain social distancing. So you can go to the United Food Bank and volunteer and not feel like you're going to be compromising your social distancing needs, and still at the same time contribute to the community. Their greatest need right now is bread and volunteers. To find out more, please go to unitedfoodbank.org. And again, we will continue to update these measures in the city as time goes by. I'm pleased to make the following announcement. Beginning now, the City of Mesa utility departments, including energy and water, have suspended utility cutoffs. This is as a result of many of the concerns that were expressed by our council members. If you are a City of Mesa utility customer and you received a delinquent notice, please contact customer service, and they will help you negotiate the process of receiving benefits, similar to the benefits we're going to be discussing later today in ordinance. Also, we'd encourage you to check daily to the mesaaz.gov/coronavirus website. All of the resources that I just described for you will be listed on that website beginning tomorrow, and they are currently on, I know, the mayor's and the city's Facebook pages as well. All right, that was a lot of information. I don't know if I got through all of it successfully. Is anyone aware of other important information that should be shared at this time? And I'm sure everything that I just told you will be out of date in a matter of a few days. So it's important that you continue to refresh and go to the city. Again, mesaaz.gov/coronavirus, where all of this information will be updated. The next item on our agenda, is we do have an additional very important award to consider under this agenda item. This is Women's History Month. Tonight, I'm pleased to issue a proclamation to that effect. I'm proud to proclaim March of this year as Women's History Month in Mesa, Arizona. This month is a celebration of women's contributions to history, culture, and society. And we had planned to have a very significant and very impressive photograph taken today of many of the wonderful women who work for the city of Mesa. That would include many of the leaders of our city. But with the current coronavirus situation, we've opted not to do that. I do want to say that we do have an incredible cadre of female workers, particularly in very strategic management positions in the city. We're very proud of that. They include assistant and deputy city managers, department directors, and engineers, to police officers, firefighters, electricians, gas inspectors. Women play a huge role in operating our city. And now I'd like to give this proclamation, and rather than the large photograph we'd planned, I'm going to symbolically hand this proclamation to Councilmember Duff and ask her to continue another part of the presentation.
Mayor, did you want me to read the proclamation? I'm not clear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, but
or just accept it. And
please
then,
accept it with our gratitude. And Jen, I guess symbolically we appreciate you representing the City of Mesa employees, and we'll look forward to another time where we will create that very impressive photograph that documents all the folks in management positions that contribute to the city.
Well, thank you for making this proclamation to the women's contribution of our history and how we're going forward. There's many recognized and unsung heroes that have given birth to the strength that we have today. So I commemorate those women and look forward to being able to celebrate that in a later time in this proclamation.
Thank you very much, Jen. The next item on our agenda for this meeting is to take action on the consent agenda. I'd invite Mr. Kevin Christopher forward to read the consent agenda. Mr. Christopher, I need to let you know, and I don't think you know this yet, but item 3A has been removed by the applicant from the agenda.
Before we proceed, I'd like to request 4H and 7A be taken off of consent as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, let's make sure we do this right. 4H, is that correct?
Yes, and 7A.
4H and 7A. All right. Thank you. So items 3A, 4H, and 7A will be removed from the consent agenda. Well, item 3 is removed from the agenda altogether, and items 4H and 7A are removed from the consent agenda.
All right, good evening, Mayor and council members. These are the items on the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk will be considered as a group by the City Council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless a council member or citizen requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered as a separate item. If a citizen wants an item removed, a blue card must be completed and given to the city clerk prior to the council's vote on the consent agenda. Item 2, approval of minutes of previous meetings as written. Item 3A has been removed from the agenda. Item 3B, act on liquor license application for Mikey's League Incorporated, one-day event April 2nd, 922 South Country Club Drive. Item 3C, act on liquor license application for Square One Incorporated, one-day event April 16th, 922 South Country Club Drive. Item 3D, act on liquor license application for Ultimate Imaginations, one-day event April 4th on McDonald from Main Street to First Street and on Pepper Place from Center Street to Robeson. Item 4A, act on 18-month term contract for office furniture products and millwork services for citywide use as requested by the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 4B, act on dollar limit increase to the term contract for landscape maintenance services for parks, retention basins, and sports fields, Zone 1, for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 4C, act on dollar limit increase to the term contract for Glock handguns for the Police Department. Item 4D, act on 3-year term contract with 2 years of renewal options for self-contained breathing apparatus, air equipment, and repair parts for the Mesa Fire and Medical Department. Item 4E, act on dollar limit increase to the term contract for original equipment manufacturer, heavy-duty truck parts and repairs for the Fleet Services Department. Item 4F, act on 3-year term contract with 2 years of renewal options for tire maintenance and repair services for the Fleet Services Department. Item 4G, act on 1-year term contract with 2 years of renewal options for Class 250 residential gas meters for the Materials and Supply Warehouse for the Energy Resources Department. Item 4H has been removed from the consent agenda. Item 4I, act to authorize the mayor to sign an employment contract with the interim city auditor. Item 5A, act on a resolution approving and authorizing the city manager to accept and administer grant funds from the National League of Cities Census Rapid Response Grant Program. Item 5B, act on a resolution approving and authorizing the city manager to accept funds from the U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. Marshal Service for Mesa Police Officer overtime work in support of the Joint Law Enforcement Operations Task Force. Item 5C, act on a resolution approving and authorizing the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission to accept grant funds to be used for training, equipment, and supplies for the Police Department's Forensic Services Division. Item 5D, act on a resolution approving and authorizing the city manager to enter into a development agreement with Signal Butte Grid relating to approximately 10,153 acres of property located near the northwest corner of Elliott Road and Signal Butte Road for the purpose of opting into the Elliott Road Technology Corridor Overlay. Item 5E, act on resolution modifying fees and charges for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 6A, introduction of ordinance regarding ZON 19-00806 within the 5,600 to 6,000 blocks of East Thomas Road and within the 3,600 to 4,000 blocks of North Recker Road, located north of Thomas Road and west of Recker Road. This is a rezone to allow for development of a single residence subdivision. Item 6B, introduction of ordinance regarding ZON 19-00651 within the 1,300 block of North 46th Street, located west of Brown Road and east of Greenfield Road, rezoned to allow for development of a single residence subdivision. Item 7A has been removed from the consent agenda. Item 7B, act on ordinance regarding ZON 19-00710 within the 7,000 to 7,600 blocks of East Guadalupe Road and within the 2,800 through 3,100 blocks of South Sossaman Road, located south of Guadalupe Road and west of Sossaman Road, rezone and major modification of existing planned area development to allow for development of a single residence subdivision. Item 8A, act on subdivision plat. Estates at Hermosa Ranch, located within the 4,000 block of East Hermosa Vista Drive, located south of McDowell Road and east of Alvista Drive. And item 8B, act on resolution approving and authorizing the city manager to enter into a maintenance agreement with McDowell Citrus 100 LLC for the installation and maintenance of improvements in the right-of-way for a development known as Estates at Hermosa Ranch. Mayor and council members, these are the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. Ms. Mickelson, has there been any request to speak on an item on the consent agenda?
Lisa Anderson is downstairs, but I don't believe she's received anything additional.
Okay, so just for those who are following, we do have some members of the public that are downstairs just for social distancing purposes, and we're not aware that any of them have an item, want to remove an item from the consent agenda. Okay, thank you. There's been a motion made by Mr. Freeman, seconded by Mr. Heredia for approval of the consent agenda. Please vote. Mr. Luna, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Thank you. Consent agenda passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda will be item 4H. Item 4H is the Mesa City Center third guaranteed maximum price. This item was taken off the consent agenda by Mr. Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker, do you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I just want to say, requesting this removed off the consent. I won't be supporting this. It's relative that we're talking about the ordinance related to affordable utilities, and then tonight we're also approving another $60 million to come out of our utilities for the ASU project. So I won't support any of these projects that continue to drain our utilities.
Okay, thank you. Council, any discussion on this item?
I do.
Mr. Freeman.
Maybe, Mr. Brady, can you explain, are we using utility monies to fund this building?
So Mayor and Council, as you recall, we did identify early on some funding out of the enterprise fund, but going forward, the debt service payments that we anticipate to fund will not come out of the enterprise fund. So that will be all moved outside of the enterprise fund.
So you're using two different funding mechanisms?
There'll be multiple funding. We
Funding
talked about using revenues from the sale of Pinal County land. We've sold some other parcels, and that the balance of the debt service payment will be coming from the general revenue sources of the city.
And so I just want to clarify to the public that we're not using any utility funds to build this building. So thank you very much. I'll be in support of this.
Thank you. Harkening back to our discussions of the ASU building, I remember at the time telling folks that I would support this project with the caveat that we are not going to raise utility rates. We're not going to raise sales taxes to pay for that building. And that's the criteria that we followed, and that the understanding that I have as we move forward with this building. Ironically, I think we all have heard, I think going forward, this building actually takes pressure off of our utility ratepayers. And here's why I will say that. Mesa has a unique financial model where because of the lack of a primary property tax and the lack of a food tax, we rely very heavily on sales tax, state shared revenue, and revenue from utilities. When there are portions of our community that are attracting wonderful new master planned residential communities, huge industrial buildings that are paying literally millions of dollars to the city coffers for utility revenues each year. There are also parts of our community that are literally dark and are not participating economically or through the utility system in our community. For the system that we have to work, we need to revitalize those areas, and we need to bring sales tax activity, economic activity, and utility activity to the dark neighborhoods of our community. So I'm very supportive of the ASU project, not only because it will increase higher education attainment in our community, which is a standalone good enough reason in my mind, but also because of the economic benefit, particularly in stimulating new utility accounts and economic activity that will actually take pressure off of our existing and even dwindling utility customers in West Mesa and in the downtown area. So far from seeing it as a problem, I see this as the solution to the problem.
Mayor?
Yes, Jen.
I just wanted to ask a question of Mr. Brady. Could you refresh my memory of what the anticipated utility revenues are from the ASU building that we'll be realizing annually?
Well, it was, we looked at what we talked about, and the mayor kind of covered it. It's not just the building itself, but the development that is being leveraged because ASU is coming to downtown. And we've already seen that, right, in two projects that are already under construction. And so we have committed to providing, resourcing the cost of the ASU building with those new projects that come online. So for example, I think it's referred to as the Grove, the development at Mesa Drive and Main Street, the Grid. All of those have indicated the reason that they were here was because of the commitment for the ASU building. So we are taking both their.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Luna, unfortunately, there's a delay and some feedback. So would you do us a favor and mute your speakers because it's interfering with kind of the live broadcast? Thank you.
So we take both the construction sales tax and the permit revenues from both of those projects, and they'll go towards making the payment on the ASU building. And then, as the mayor said, both of those will obviously, both of them are being built in, or either parking lots or empty parking garages, or underutilized, or I guess another one was another parking lot plus rental properties. So now we're maximizing those, that area within our service area, and we'll see additional revenues from the utilities because of it. I don't know the quantity of that number on the utilities until they start using utilities, but we can already see construction sales tax and building permits because of those two projects.
Yes, I realize the economic impact is huge comparatively. And I was going to estimate the figure, but I didn't want to go from my memory and.
Oh, I'm
that,
sorry,
but,
the study that we did to
yeah,
leverage
there's a
that.
study that is.
Correct, I apologize, I don't have that off the top of my head, so.
I want to say, anyway.
It was in excess, obviously, it was far in excess of what we're spending. It was like $130 million, I want to say.
Annually,
No, that was total, I think it was the total project.
okay.
But we can get that to you, council, I
Okay,
don't.
anyway, my recollection is just besides the economic return, when we talk about just what the utilities are on that building, it's a significant contribution into our enterprise fund. So I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, so long as the voters voted against this building, I'll continue to vote against this building, like they did in the ballot in 2016. And the second thing I want to point out is that this building is being funded by the utilities. The money is transferred from the utilities to either the enterprise fund or the economic investment fund in the tune, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, $8 million a year. Which is coming directly out of our utilities. So it's being funded directly from our utilities.
So Mayor, we can maybe shed some light on that. I'm not sure that that is the case. Let me have Candace come forward and explain that. Going forward, there are no funds coming out of the enterprise fund.
Well, let's talk about where the money came from for the last
Well,
2 years.
let's let him respond.
Let's answer the question.
Yeah. Mayor and Councilmember Whitaker, we have transferred or are planning to transfer $9 million in total from the Enterprise Fund to the Economic Investment Fund that is going toward this project. So in the total amount of the project, only $9 million is being funded by the Enterprise Fund.
That was approved by council over the last 3 years.
Correct. That was over a 2-year time period.
2-year time, okay.
Going forward, the original thought was then we would look for we have other sources now that are funding the rest of the building. So only $9 million of the project is coming from the Enterprise Fund.
So far.
In total. The complete project is outlined with cash that we have on hand today, reserves, as well as our debt financing, and the debt financing will be paid for by the general fund, not by the Enterprise Fund.
There's no plan to tap into additional funding from the enterprise fund for this project.
Correct.
So the sales tax excise bonds will be paid for out of the general fund moving forward, is what you're saying?
That is correct.
And the enterprise fund last year transferred how much money to the general fund?
The general fund, those are two separate issues. So the general fund, the enterprise fund to the transfer to the general fund, those are unrestricted, not related to ASU whatsoever. What we're talking about is the transfer that was made with council direction from the enterprise fund to the economic investment fund. Those are the only funds being used on the ASU project that originated in the enterprise fund.
Yeah, I'm talking about moving forward, though. The general fund money is commingled, so the fact that we're paying for utilities out of the general fund and the general fund is taking money from the enterprise fund in the tune of something like $108 million a year, it's being paid through using utility funds by proxy, essentially, right? Using the general fund as a pass-through.
So Mayor and Councilmember Whitaker, the transfer that we are transferring today from the enterprise fund to the general fund is not changing at all in dollar amount, even though we are moving the debt service from the ASU project into the general fund. So there's no increase to the transfer from the enterprise fund to the general fund due to this project or any other project that the city is working on.
Not an increase, but that's the source of the funds.
The source of the funds is the general fund. We're doing many land sales that are offsetting that, and it's the debt service that will come out of the general fund on an ongoing basis to pay off of that debt. Again, the transfer going into the general fund from the enterprise fund is not increasing at all going forward. And then the next item you have on your agenda today to talk about is an ordinance that would actually restrict that even more so.
I don't have any more questions.
Thank you. Yes.
Councilmember Duff's question, I got a text. Oops, sorry. I believe the answer to your question, our analysis from 2018 projected $4.1 million a year in total economic
And
impact. So-
economic and.
And that would include the utilities. That was included in that total.
I want to say, and I can be totally off because my memory isn't always the best, but I wanted to say, I had read in one of our studies that we anticipated like $1 million a year in utility revenues from the building.
Okay. We'll get an answer for you. Someone's looking at that right now.
Well, I have a recollection of what those numbers were. And again, I know we won't know what the debt service is on these bonds until we sell the bonds. The silver lining in all of the financial disasters that we're experiencing, we've seen unfold over the last week or two, is that municipal bond rates have gone dramatically down. So I think when we sell these bonds, there's the possibility that the rates are going to be at a historic lows and even lower than we had anticipated. But
Sure.
at the time that we were doing the math, I
Yeah.
believe we were anticipating, and again, I think the amount that we're contributing through bond debt is maybe even less than it was initially.
Absolutely, Mayor. Because of the sale of land and other items we've identified that will go towards the principal before we issue debt, we expect that the total debt service amount will be much less than what we had originally talked about. Again, we give you an update. Sorry, I'm probably not reading this right, but utilities were estimated at $4.1 million, overall $9.75 million a year. So that's the number I'm getting as far as the economic impact. 4.1 million for utilities and 9.75 million a year for, if you include everything, economic impact to the city because of this.
So the 4 million is for the building alone, or?
Well, because of the activity coming because of the ASU building, that's the increase overall, not just the building itself.
Okay, all right.
But your million may be closer to what if you're asking what the utility bill for the ASU building, that's probably pretty close.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, I was just going to say, my recollection of the numbers is, so again, I think the debt service on the building we were anticipating could be about $5 million a year.
That was the original, back at the beginning, correct, Mayor?
And I'm going to guess that it's going to be less than that. I mean, we will know when we sell the bonds, but the amount we're going to finance is less, and the rate that we're going to be paying is less.
Correct.
So I think it's probably, we'll find out. But 4 million is probably not a bad guess.
It's less than
I would
that.
say it's even less than that, Mayor.
Less than 4 million.
I think
Yeah,
if we
we're
start off,
estimating right now about 3.3 million, but without knowing what the interest rates are.
Okay. And again, the economic impact statements that were done said that the direct impact of this building would be over nearly $10 million. That's before you get into the ripple effect of more people, more economic activity, the second and third tiers of the economic activity. So I think we can very clearly look the voters in the eye and say, the money for this is going to come from the economic activity many times over in downtown. And I would want to correct one thing. The voters were not asked if they wanted to build an ASU facility in downtown Mesa. The voters were asked if they wanted to do a 0.4% sales tax increase. The vast majority of that money was earmarked to go to public safety. And that's all of the campaign materials that were put out to educate the voters about this. I won't say all, nearly all, touted the reason for proceeding was to protect public safety. So, and over 80% of the money that was raised would have been earmarked for public safety. And then there was a long laundry list of other city projects that would also benefit. One of them was an ASU facility on a much grander scale than the one that is under construction now. So I believe what we're doing here is very consistent with the will of the voters. All right. Any additional comments, council? All right. There's a motion made by Mr. Freeman, waiting for a second by Mr. Heredia. This is for approval of agenda item 4H. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Luna, anything you'd like to add to this conversation?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Luna.
No, I'm excited about this project. We can't forget that the ASU project is going to be transformational in the downtown area. And as an educator, I think it's important that we continue collaborating with ASU to bring these kind of projects in the downtown area. I'm excited about the innovation that's going to bring. We are going to be a leader in that, and so I am definitely in support of this project moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, you have anything to add?
I don't, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Luna, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Thank you. Measure passes 6 ayes and Mr. Whitaker voting nay. The next item on our agenda is item 7A. This is, I'll read the item, repealing the Mesa City Code Title III, Chapter 3, Utilities Department, and replacing it with a new Title III, Chapter 3, titled Water Resources, Energy Resources, and Environmental Management and Sustainability Departments. The new language includes the creation of a utility assistance program, the permitted uses for the utility system revenues, and the permitted transfer of utility funds primary for public safety. Mr. Whitaker, you asked to have this taken off the consent agenda. Was there something you'd like to say?
Sure. So we've heard this ordinance will lower utility rates when in fact it won't. This ordinance accounting for the franchise fees raises the amount of money being taken out of the utilities. It does not lower it. We have the highest water bills compared to any city in the valley. Utility rates are already too high, and the people of Mesa should not be burdened with the cost of high utilities to subsidize their spending. It's ironic that this ordinance talks about safe, clean, reliable, and affordable utility services when it does none of these. How can we possibly talk about reliable utilities and nobody's ever bothered to ask the question, how much money can we extract from our utilities before we bankrupt them? Nobody cares to answer that question, but in 2005 they did. The city analyzed the problem we're talking about today. Their recommendation in order not to bankrupt the utilities was cap the transfer at 17%. Now we're sitting here today proposing that we double that amount, which was determined as sustainable and would not bankrupt our utilities. You can't extract 34% of the revenues from the utilities. It's reckless, destructive, and it will inevitably bankrupt our utility system. The last thing I want to add is that I find it highly ironic that this ordinance pretends to care about public safety. If we cared so much about public safety, we'd be funding their pension retirement system. Every year, their unfunded balance grows and grows while we continue to spend. The only reason we're labeling this as a public safety is so that it can be said that the real Vote Yes on Affordable Utilities initiative would cut public safety, which just isn't true. This is solely a council decision. Further, this ordinance that we're discussing can be overturned by any council, including this one, in just 1 week's time. And on that, I'll be voting against the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. We do have requests to speak on this item. Ms. Mickelson, is there anyone downstairs that has filed a card to speak on this item?
Yes, there's 4 speakers downstairs.
4 speakers, okay. I'm not sure, are they going to appear via video from downstairs?
You want them to come up here? I don't know, I thought,
Oh, okay. Well, they're not on camera downstairs waiting for us, is that correct? If that's the case, why don't we go ahead and invite the individuals that have been waiting downstairs to come up? Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? It looks like they're appearing. Time out. It looks on our monitors. We're getting now downstairs. So I think we are prepared to do this remotely. So do we know who the people are that have requested to speak?
Lisa has the card. She could probably tell you their names.
Thank you. Lisa, will you read the first card, please?
Mayor, the first speaker is Tyler Montag.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Montag. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Tyler Montag. I'm a member of the Action Neighborhood Alliance and the Mesa Grande Community Alliance, but I'm here speaking on my own behalf. I'm in support of these changes to the city code. I think we do a great job. A couple of things that I would like to highlight that to me illustrate the fact that we are a well-run city. We just paid off the bonds for the spring training facilities 13 years early. Our credit rating is AA, excellent credit rating. And I saw that we are ranked in the top 20 of the best run big cities by Wallet Hub. And we were the only big city in Arizona to have that ranking. We do a good job. Per capita, we're one of the lowest spenders in the region. Some of the brand new cities, I think, will discover that they have more expenses as they age and respect what we've done here. I like this change because it does put into code clearly what we're doing. It will, the citizens will understand what the expenses are, what we are going to do to help seniors and low-income families to meet their needs and to help them with utility costs. And that's a good thing. I think that using this funding method is also good, using surpluses from the utility fund. We don't have a primary property tax. We don't have a sales food tax. We fund our operations this way. I like that philosophically better than a property tax. I don't think we should rent our property back from the government if we can avoid that. So that's good. I think the alternative plan would be devastating to public safety. People always say, oh, you're just trying to pull the public's heartstrings. Well, that's all cities do. We spend 70% of the revenues on police and fire, and the rest is roads and libraries and things. And we just could not make the sort of cuts that the alternative proposal would do without hurting police and fire. And in this current environment, which is really unprecedented in my lifetime, can we think of a worse thing than cutting our emergency first responders? I think that would be a terrible idea. The citizens voted to improve funding for police and fire. They didn't vote for us to improve that here and then cut it elsewhere. So I think this ordinance would do a good job supporting them, and I am in support and hope that we can make Mesa reliable and affordable by supporting this action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montague. Who is the next person to submit a card?
Mayor, the next speaker is Ron Williams.
Welcome, Mr. Williams. Thank you for your service on our Human Relations Advisory Board.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council.
3 minutes also.
Thank you so much, Mayor and City Council. Again, I'm Ron Williams. I'm a 19-year Mesa resident. Ever since I came here with the Air Force, except for a short stint in Tempe, I've always lived in Mesa. I am in support of this ordinance because I do agree that it's reliable and can provide reliable and affordable utilities. The city of Mesa is one of the most affordable cities in the valley, which is why I continue to live here. Mesa has no primary property tax, no food tax, and the lowest sales tax revenue per capita. Overall, Mesa has the third lowest general fund spending per capita in the entire region. Of course, I believe that the city has done a great job being fiscally responsible, and this ordinance is good policy to protect our taxpayers. One other note I believe is our utilities must be good partners with Mesa senior and low-income families. As I potentially can have in-laws in my home as seniors, I understand that Mesa's already have an effective program in place to help those in need, but we must continue to do more to protect our most vulnerable. We should also strengthen our programs to help those in need by reducing the monthly water service charge paid by low-income seniors and increasing funding for the Affordable Utility Assistance Program. We need to protect our quality of life, and Mesa must continue to find physically responsible ways to provide quality services like fire, police, library, parks, bus service, dial-a-ride, playgrounds, and road repair. Mesa's quality of life protects our property values and plays a key role in our ability to attract residents and businesses, and I'm a local business owner as well. Mesa has made great strides in its commitment to public safety. Recognizing the need to invest in public safety, the voters of Mesa passed Question 2, dedicated to police and the fire department equipment and training for 2018. We must safeguard improvements. A large influx of families and seniors to East Mesa has caused demand in some areas to grow by as much as 310%. The public safety tax was intended to help address this problem. We must keep our promise to the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Who's the next person that submitted a card?
Mayor, the next speaker is Julie Spilsbury.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Spilsbury. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Julie Spilsbury, and I'm a long-term resident of Mesa, District 2. As a mother of a large family and a small business owner, affordable living is very important to me. I chose to raise my family in Mesa, and I want to make sure it continues to be a family-friendly place and one of the most affordable cities in the valley. In fact, I love telling people that Mesa is one of the most affordable and well-managed cities in the country. Mesa is thriving right now. We're attracting jobs, investing in higher education, innovative education, and building our future workforce. We have made great strides in protecting our quality of life by investing in public safety, and this is all really exciting to me. We are the largest city in the country without a primary property tax, as has been said, and this is a tax in which Mesa residents have rejected every time it's been proposed. Mesa is headed in the right direction because we are committed to protecting taxpayers and ensuring that the city fees and taxes remain reasonable. Under this alternative initiative called Affordable Utilities, the city's operating budget would be drastically reduced and potentially force it to cut $50 million in spending without additional sources of revenue to adequately fund public safety. They can say that it doesn't, but it will. This is unacceptable. With the approval of Question 2 in 2018, the voters have made it clear that public safety is important to them. Obviously, transparency and fiscal discipline are also important to voters as well, and the City of Mesa's Reliable and Affordable Utilities Ordinance that we're talking about addresses these issues. Placing a cap of 25% of the funds to be used to sustain public safety and 5% for general use would be a positive development, making it the first time the city has put a limit on what can be transferred for non-utility purposes. This limit ensures that adequate revenue is reserved to maintain and improve the city's utility services. These reforms are a smarter and more reliable way of being both fiscally responsible and adequately funding our public safety. For decades, the City of Mesa has been able to have balanced budgets due to our sales tax revenues, secondary property taxes to pay for bonds, and the enterprise fund transfers generated from the utility revenues. To me, this proposal seems like the best solution to keeping our city affordable while at the same time addressing the legitimate concerns of transparency and providing reasonable fiscal restraints. We simply cannot afford massive cuts to fire, police, parks and playgrounds, road repair, and transportation services without significantly diminishing the level of service that we enjoy today as residents of Mesa. I support the city's Reliable and Affordable Utilities Ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pillsbury. Are there other speakers that have submitted cards downstairs?
Mayor, the final speaker is Michael Hughes.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Hughes. Thank you for all the work that A New Leaf does in our community.
Thank you. I will not take the full 3 minutes. First of all, I'd like to just state that I concur with the previous 3 speakers. I would also like to start by saying that the city has been fiscally responsive, and I believe that this resolution is good policy in protecting our Mesa citizens that are less fortunate. Mesa Can has been a part of A New Leaf since 2006. The city gives us approximately $200,000 a year for utility assistance and operations. The city has been supportive of our agency, and this resolution strengthens your commitment to our residents, especially seniors, by enhancing the city's utility assistance program. I wholeheartedly support this resolution and find it to be fiscally accountable, responsive to the Mesa citizenry, and always appreciate your continued support. Thank you very much, council members, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. All right, just to confirm, there's no more live speakers, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whitaker, you asked to have this item taken from the consent agenda. Would you like to address it?
I'm pretty much have said what I wanted to say about the issue previously. There's a couple of things that we should talk about, though. We've heard that Mesa's bond rating is amongst the highest in the valley. It's not. We have a AA negative rating. There are multiple cities with a higher bond rating than us: Phoenix, Tempe, Scottsdale, Peoria, Gilbert, Chandler, Avondale, and in fact, the only three that I can find that are lower are Goodyear, Surprise, and Glendale. The other issue that we talked about was the most affordable city in the valley. I think I heard somebody throw that out there. This is also not true. If you go back and you look at the valley city comparison chart, preferably the one from Tempe, as it isn't biased, it includes, if you can go back to 2014 and you can see from an affordable study, we were the second lowest on the list 6 years ago. And today we're the second highest on the list, excluding Tucson, which isn't in the valley, like I said previously. So I'll still continue to not support this ordinance, as, again, it increases the transfer. It does nothing to make affordable utilities more affordable.
Okay. Council, discussion on this item. Mr. Freeman?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brady, I'll probably bring you into this conversation, but since I've been on council, we spend tens of millions of dollars and hundreds of millions of dollars on our infrastructure in our community, building our streets, our pipes. We go into older areas of our city. We have a game plan to always meet the infrastructure needs of our city, because we are in the business to provide services to our community. With that said, sustainability with those departments and our utility departments is very important to me. We have great directors who continue to work hard in placing development and replacement of basically all our piping and electricity if we have an electric company. So our enterprise system is an extremely important part of what we do in our community. Now, and you can see that as you drive around our community, but the enterprise system is developed to transfer monies over to our general fund. And as we've learned, when I first got elected, it was difficult to say why the transfer of monies, what it went to, because it commingled with so many different things. But today, I find that this simplifies myself as a council member to say this is going for public safety, to fill the gap that we have, and then we're going to take other revenue from our state shared revenue and our sales tax revenue to help fund the difference for our public safety. And again, to all our departments, because I applaud our department managers, everybody who are responsive and making our utility system the best there is. Yeah, we may be slightly higher or higher on our water, but at the end of the day, we have a water system that is phenomenal. We have a secured water supply, and I'm supporting this transfer and this ordinance because it simplifies my ability as a council member to look at my constituents and anybody and say, this is why we're doing this, because we're sending it over to public safety. And then as well as our underprivileged and others that need other help. And I support this ordinance. So, Mr. Brady, do we spend a lot of money every year with our bonds and everything for our infrastructure?
Oh, absolutely. In the last couple of years, we've probably spent more than almost any city in the valley. We've built a new water treatment plant. We're completing a new wastewater treatment plant, plus all of the other pipes we put in the ground. So we are by far one of the leaders in building out the infrastructure that not only serves the residents for today, but for generations to come.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor. I'll be supporting it.
Okay, thank you. Francisco.
Yeah, just real quick, since I've been on the council last almost 3 years now, our efforts to, look at utilities and figure out solutions to the problems that we face, it has always been at least my key and for a lot of us at the council and ensuring that we work with staff and our constituents to, again, find solution that positively impact our residents. And I feel, this is something that we can, have to help support our residents in moving forward. Is it the end of this? No, I think we've always know that how we improve is a day to day, week by week, month to month, year by year. We have rates discussion happening in the next couple months that we keep, looking at how we can lessen the burden on our residents. And I think this type of decision and movement to find solutions that positively impact our residents is something that, at least for me, I want to be a doer that looks at these options to ensure that we, help our staff and our system and our residents moving forward, and ensuring that we keep on working towards those solutions. So I'm supporting this initiative ordinance because of that. Like I mentioned, since I've been on the council, I think we have looked at this issue and trying to work with staff and work with our community to really find solutions. And I think this is part of it. It's not the end all be all yet. It's an evolving process, I believe, that to ensure that we find creative ways and find ways to help support our residents at the end of the day. And we will keep on working towards that piece. At least for me on the council, you have my commitment to keep on working on the utility issue to ensure that we lessen the burden on our residents. And I do think this ordinance does that moving forward.
Thank you. Jen?
I definitely agree with, with the speakers and the comments of Councilmember Freeman and Heredia. And so not to belabor that, but I do want to say, I'm a year on council now. And when I first came on, the first thing I looked at is to really understand our enterprise and general fund and how those transfer and what it is. And I did a deep dive into it, so many hours in this. And after that, I am just impressed with the city's fiscal transparency and responsibility, and double check systems that are in place with the audits, internal, external, that I just want to convey that we are a well-run city. I'm very proud of the work that we do here, and we are very fiscally responsible and known for that nationally. Also, our enterprise system was built to support our budget. And one of the reasons we have the negative on our bond rating is because we don't have the primary property tax. We do rely on some utility funds in order to support our budget. But it is not for any other reason. We do quite well considering we do not have a primary property tax. And I would say, about 2/3 of our budget is public safety. And when you're talking about doing anything less as far as funding that we now provide from the enterprise fund to our general fund, there is no way that anything less than we do now will not impact public safety. And through the trauma that we're going through now, and I am just so thankful that we have a good public safety system in our police and fire, and it is certainly a time that we value the resources and the time and commitment that we have to be safe and well prepared in case of an epidemic like that a pandemic that we're going through right now. So I think this is critical that we, in this ordinance, we secure those funds for public safety and we remain to be a safe and affordable place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Luna, do you have anything to add to this?
I do, Mayor.
This is Councilmember Luna. First of all, the city of Mesa has not had a primary property tax since 1945, and we can't lose sight of that. City forefathers decided that we didn't need property tax, that we would rely on our enterprise fund to keep the city moving forward. And that was a really cool idea, and we appreciate that. But we also have no food tax. We continue to have the lowest tax revenues per capita, and overall, Mesa continues to be the third lowest general fund spending per capita in the entire region. So I have to agree with everyone on council with the exception of Mr. Whitaker. But I believe that the city of Mesa has done a really good job fiscally. And I think this proposal is a good policy to protect our taxpayers. And what I'm most excited about is how we can partner with our seniors and our low-income families. And when we talk about low-income families, we talk about many Latino families within our community. This proposal is very, very important because it will provide some relief to those families, especially those who are in need. We need to continue to protect the most vulnerable. And what we need to do is strengthen our programs to help those in need by reducing monthly water service charge paid by our low-income seniors, our families that are in need, and increasing funding for the Affordable Utility Assistance Program. So I am going to be in support of this change, and I think this is a good thing for the city of Mesa.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, I believe you said you didn't have any comment, correct?
No, I do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please proceed.
So I stated before, the reason our water rates or where our water rates are at now is because back in 2015, the council decided that it wanted to really implement water conservation efforts and utilize our rates to do that. We wanted to make sure it didn't harm those less fortunate. The average everyday water user, it wasn't going to impact them. We were really going after the large water users in our community. But there are parts of this ordinance that I like. For example, the utility assistance program and the transparency that it puts in place. But overall, I just think this is a terrible policy, especially in the uncertain times that we're in now. I'm sure that we're going to take a hit in our budget because of the cancellation of spring training. Seen across the nation that governors have closed all non-essential businesses, so I hope that doesn't take place in Arizona because we'll take an even bigger hit on in revenue for our budget. I think any time that we start playing games with our budget that could have an impact on our citizens' employees, I think it's just a really bad policy. But however, faced with the alternative, I'm going to support this ordinance moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson. I have a few comments to share as well. I believe the comment was made that someone had suggested that this ordinance that we were touting this ordinance as something that would lower utility rates. I have never heard anyone say that. I think in any of the council discussions that we've had about this, clearly this measure does not dictate utility rates. It does not mandate a reduction in utility rates. The same is true of the initiative. Both proposals are utterly silent on the issue of utility rates. The utility rates have been and will continue to be set by our city council, and I think that's appropriate. I'm proud of the fact that the city council has declined to raise utility rates this year. The year before that, we raised utility rates marginally, less than the cost of living. When I was elected to this position in 2014, on the same ballot was $500 million in utility infrastructure bonds. And the first day I showed up here after that election, we were told by city staff that in order to finance those bonds, that it would necessitate a schedule of utility rate increases over the course of several years to pay for the largest things that the city has ever built. The Signal Butte wastewater treatment plant, the expansion of the Greenfield wastewater treatment plant, a lot of other utility infrastructure. In spite of the need to build those things and to finance those bonds, this council has held the line on utility rate increases. In fact, if you are a City of Mesa utility rate payer, and our rates are less than Southwest Gas. If you're an electric customer, they're less than Salt River Project. If you're a solid waste customer, we compete commercially favorably with all of the commercial waste carriers and beat them in their rates. Yes, if you live in Mesa, you're going to pay a little bit higher for water, but marginally, just a few dollars more. And again, the reason for that is the fact that you live in a city, one of the only city in the top 50 of the United States that does not have a primary property tax. One of the very few cities in the nation that doesn't have a tax on food. And again, a city that's in a large growth spurt and is financing a lot of infrastructure development. So again, I'm proud of the frugal nature of this organization. I'm proud that we've held the line on utility rates. And again, comparing this proposal to the alternative, it's really no comparison. The alternative drastically cuts city services. The last time staff evaluated the potential financial impact, it was approximately $50 million a year. The impact of that would be to effectively cut quality of life programs, eliminate libraries, museums, any parks programs. And given that over 70% of our city budget is dedicated to public service, you could not insulate public service from the impacts of that proposal. That would more than undo the voter-approved sales tax increase to add money to our public safety departments, not take money away. Particularly in a time of growth when we're trying to lower response rates, the opposite would be the impact. So for all of those reasons, I am a fan of this ordinance. Would certainly also entertain the discussion of putting this on the ballot for a charter amendment so that it can be, this will give it the weight of law, but if we want to even elevate it to our city charter, I think that's a discussion that I'm happy to have as well. I have been delaying reading the additional comments that have been coming in because given the format of this meeting, we want, and I think going forward, you're going to see more and more live electronic comments being added to our meeting. There are, and I spoke also earlier today with several people who, because of the coronavirus situation, asked if we were going to encourage people to come to our meetings or if rather there would be opportunities to participate electronically or by giving statements, and I encouraged several people to do it, to not come live, but to rather submit statements. So I'll read the statements that we've received so far because I committed to these folks that this would be able to be a part of the record. The following is a statement from Mr. Dan Taylor received by email. Mayor and council members, I'm here this evening in support of, he's not actually here, in spirit, in support of the City of Mesa replacing the current Utilities Department section of the Mesa Code with a new section that will enable the city to continue to have reliable and affordable utilities for our community. Before retiring, I was the executive director of the East Valley Adult Resources for 25 years. In that time, our nonprofit organization, which provides senior centers, social service meals, and housing assistance to thousands of older adults on fixed incomes who spend over 50% of their income on housing and utilities. Utility assistance is difficult to find, and although the city has had an assistance program, the needs continue to grow at a rapid pace. I'm pleased that a section of this proposed ordinance deals with the utility assistance program, specifically a low-income senior discount that will formalize this assistance and make permanent the process. This will provide a safety net for our most vulnerable older adult population so they will not have to make a choice between utilities and basic needs like food and medical bills. Nonprofits and other organizations have always recognized the importance of diverse funding sources, and the city-run utilities provide funds for public safety and other critical services for Mesa residents. This innovative approach is why Mesa can continue to grow during what can be challenging times. This is a statement received from Monica Mikuleski. Mayor Giles and council members, I've drafted the Vote Yes on Affordable Utilities Initiative. The reason for the Vote Yes on Affordable Utilities Initiative is that Mesa utility rates are too high. I talked with my neighbors who moved to Mesa from Gilbert. Their utility bill is double what it was in Gilbert. I have retired neighbors who have kept charts of how much their Mesa utility bill has increased over the last 6 years. When City Council tells them that utility rates are not too high, it sounds as if you're out of touch and that you do not care about the problems faced by everyday people. The purpose of the Vote Yes on Affordable Utilities initiative is to stabilize utility rates and reduce the amount of future rate increases by placing limits on how much utility revenue can be used to balance its general fund budget. Utility revenue should be used to operate, maintain, and upgrade the utility system. The city's transfer of a full 1/3 of all Mesa utility revenue leaves the utility system without sufficient resources. Mesa makes up this deficit by issuing utility bonds, which requires increases in our utility rates to pay the debt service on those bonds. With that background, my comments on the city proposed ordinance are as follows. First, I support a separate accounting for utility revenue. It adds transparency. Next, I suppose Section 3-3-4A of the proposed ordinance because it will cause future city councils to artificially raise rates. In contrast, the language of the Vote Yes Affordable Utilities initiative requires utility rates to reasonably correspond to what is needed to operate the utility system. I believe the language of the initiative better protects Mesa residents. Next bullet point, I oppose a 33% transfer of utility revenues to the general fund. My understanding is that Mesa intends to issue a significant amount of utility debt in the next 5 years. If the transfer percentage is not reduced, Mesa will significantly increase utility rates to pay the debt service on those bonds. Mesa utility rates are simply too high as it is. Thank you in advance for your consideration of my comments. I'm sorry that I'm unable to deliver them in person. However, given the current health emergencies and the CDC guidelines, attending a public meeting does not seem prudent at this time. Next, we have a statement from Dana Kennedy. Thank you, Mayor Giles and Mesa City Council, for your efforts to help the city's most vulnerable while keeping Mesa an affordable place to live. This ordinance strikes the right balance between improving transparency and government spending while protecting the city's budget and preventing potential cuts to public safety. AARP currently has 67,665 members in the city of Mesa. AARP's top priorities are protecting long-term financial and health security and helping people age in their own homes. We believe that the ordinance's efforts to reduce the monthly water service charge and increase funding for the Affordable Utility Assistance Program for seniors and low-income individuals help achieve these goals. In addition, we support your efforts to prevent shutoffs during excessive heat warnings, something that is critically important in ensuring the safety of our most vulnerable. For many years, Mesa has been a great place to live, particularly for Arizona's 50 and older. Reliable and affordable utilities helps make sure that it stays that way. We encourage you to help seniors and those in need by passing this ordinance. Thank you. Dana Marie Kennedy, State Director of AARP. Next, from Phil Austin. Mayor Giles and members of the Mesa City Council, as a lifelong resident of Mesa and member of a family who has owned businesses in the city for almost 80 years, I've witnessed the efficient and effective manner in which the city leadership has managed its utility system and provided the full gamut of services, including public safety services, to all of its residents. As chairman of the East Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I interact with many businesses who have or are interested in locating to Mesa and who comment that Mesa's ability to provide essential and quality of life services at comparatively reasonable rates is a key factor in the decision to locate in Mesa. I support the passage of this ordinance, the implementation of which will enhance the city's ability to effectively provide utility services and at the same time enhance business, family, and educational opportunities for current and prospective residents. Signed, Phil Austin, Chairman, East Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Next statement from Sally Harrison. As the voice of the city's business community, the Mesa Chamber would like to express our support for the Reliable and Affordable Utilities Ordinance. This ordinance helps to protect our most vulnerable residents while ensuring the city continues to be an affordable place to live and work. Mesa's businesses want and need stability, especially during the tumultuous economic times. We are concerned that other potential efforts to address the city's utility transfer will ultimately lead to a property tax and a food tax. That would not be business friendly and would be counterproductive to job growth. We appreciate the council's leadership and wholeheartedly support this ordinance. Sally Harrison, President and CEO, Mesa Chamber of Commerce. While we have been here, I've also received the following statement by email from Deanna Villanueva Sauceda. Mayor and members of the Mesa City Council, as a lifelong resident of Mesa District 4, I urge you to approve item 7A on this evening's City Council agenda. For many years, I lived in the city of Mesa's core utility service area, and my parents still reside in the same home. This action embodies the best of Mesa being proactive in order to preserve the affordable, positive quality of life in our community. Mesa has so many points of pride in our community from a fiscal viewpoint, paying off the stadiums early, solid credit rating, national ranking for affordability, no food tax, no primary property tax. I don't want to see any of that change in order to preserve public safety and other city services. Again, I urge you to approve item 7A, and more importantly, thank you for being proactive and thoughtful. Ms. Mickelson, have we received any other comments on this agenda item?
No additional requests, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion for Mr. Freeman, seconded by Councilmember Duff. Please cast your votes. Mr. Luna, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Thank you. Measure passes 6 ayes with Mr. Whitaker voting nay. The next item on our agenda is items from citizens present. Ms. Mickelson, do we have any requests to speak?
No requests, Mayor.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda for this meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Freeman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman and Mr. Thompson.